I still remember the exact second the text came through. My daughter, Lily, was 12 hours out of open-heart surgery. She was sleeping in the PICU, her tiny chest rising under the bandages, the monitor beeping steady and slow. I had just stepped into the hallway to send my family the first photo of her awake, eyes half open, a weak smile, the oxygen tube still in place. I typed, "She's okay. Surgery went well. Love you all," and hit send to the group chat that included my mother. Her reply arrived 90 seconds later. "Stop making her our problem." That was the entire message. No, how is she? No, thank God. Just those 6 words. I stared at the screen until the fluorescent lights above me started to blur. My hand shook so hard the phone almost slipped. A nurse walked past and asked if I needed anything. I said no. Then I walked into the nearest bathroom, locked the stall, and sat on the closed toilet lid with my forehead against the cold metal wall. The text stayed open on my phone. Every time the screen dimmed, I tapped it back on, so I wouldn't have to look away. That was the moment everything cracked open. I'm going to tell you the whole story, because the text wasn't the beginning. It was the moment the truth finally stopped hiding. My name is Elena. I'm 34. Lily is 7. She was born with a complex congenital heart defect, 2 holes, a narrowed valve, and a left ventricle that never fully formed the way it should. The doctors called it a single ventricle physiology. From the day she came home, her life was measured in oxygen saturations and feeding tubes, and emergency room runs at 3 in the morning. My husband, Marcus, and I learned how to listen for the softest change in her breathing the way other parents learn to listen for a baby's first words. We lived in a small blue house on the east side of Portland, Oregon, with a porch that sagged a little on the left and a backyard that flooded every spring. Marcus worked as a mechanic at a shop that specialized in older cars. I taught 3rd grade, until Lily's second open-heart procedure when she was 4. After that, I stayed home full-time because the school couldn't guarantee I'd be reachable during every crisis. We weren't rich. We were the kind of family that bought groceries with a calculator open on the phone and celebrated birthdays with homemade cake and streamers from the dollar store. But we were solid, until my mother decided we weren't. My mother's name is Diane. She lives 40 minutes away in a neat 2-story house in Lake Oswego with my stepfather, Greg. Greg owns a small accounting firm. They have granite counters, a wine fridge, and a living room that looks like it was staged for a magazine. Diane has always cared about appearances the way some people care about breathing. When I was growing up, she measured success by the cleanliness of the kitchen and the grades on the report card. She never hit me. She just made sure I understood that love was conditional on performance. When Lily was born and the cardiologist used words like palliative care and possible transplant someday, Diane's face went still. She visited the NICU once. She stood at the side of the isolette, looked at the wires, and said, "Well, this is going to be expensive." Then she left. Marcus and I told ourselves she was just in shock. People process trauma differently. We gave her time. Time didn't help. Over the next 7 years, the pattern became clear. Diane sent birthday cards with $20 bills and the same printed message. "Hope you're feeling better." She declined every invitation to Lily's school plays, every backyard barbecue, every quiet evening when we just wanted family around the table. When Lily was 5 and had to stay in the hospital for 3 weeks after a catheterization went wrong, I called Diane crying. She answered on the 3rd ring and said, "Elena, I can't keep getting pulled into this. Greg and I have our own lives. You chose to have a child with problems. That's on you." I hung up. Marcus held me while I shook. We stopped calling after that. The group chat stayed quiet for months at a time. Then last winter, Lily's cardiologist sat us down and said the words we'd been dreading. The last surgical option was on the table. A Fontan completion. High risk. Long recovery. Without it, her heart would fail within a couple of years. We scheduled the surgery for early spring. I didn't tell my mother. Marcus and I decided the less she knew, the less she could hurt us. But 3 days before the operation, my younger sister, Claire, posted a photo of Lily on Instagram. It was an old picture from Christmas. Lily in a red sweater, smiling with the gap where her 2 front teeth used to be. Claire captioned it, "Sending love to my brave niece. Surgery next week. Prayers appreciated." Claire has always been the soft one in the family. She lives in Seattle with her husband and 2 healthy kids. She tries to keep the peace. She also has a bad habit of thinking that public posts will somehow soften hard hearts. Diane saw the post. That night she texted me for the first time in 8 months. Claire says the child is having another surgery. Is this true? I answered honestly. Yes. Open heart. Fontan. High risk. Her reply came fast. You need to think carefully about whether this is the right decision. These procedures cost a fortune. Insurance doesn't cover everything. Greg and I are not a bank. I typed back. We're not asking you for money. We're just telling you. She didn't answer. The morning of the surgery, Marcus and I arrived at the hospital at 5 a.m. Lily was quiet in the pre-op room. She held her stuffed elephant, Mr. Ears, and asked if the doctors would let her keep the scar. Like a superhero, Mark, she said. I kissed her forehead and promised they would. When they wheeled her away, I stood in the hallway with Marcus's arm around my shoulders and counted the ceiling tiles so I wouldn't scream. 7 hours later, the surgeon came out and said the words that still make my chest loosen. She did well. The repair is solid. She's in recovery. I texted the photo that night. Diane's reply arrived like a slap. Stop making her our problem. I didn't sleep. I sat in the recliner next to Lily's bed and watched the numbers on the monitor. Every time a nurse came in to adjust something, I asked the same quiet question. Is she okay? They always said yes. I still asked. The next morning I showed Marcus the text. His jaw tightened. He typed a reply on my phone before I could stop him. She's 7 years old, and she just survived open-heart surgery. If you can't find one kind sentence, stay silent. Diane answered within minutes. I am being kind. I'm telling you the truth. Your child is a bottomless pit of medical bills and emotional drain. Greg and I have worked too hard to be dragged into your crisis. Do not contact us again about this. Marcus deleted the thread. He looked at me and said, We're done with her. I wanted to believe it was that simple. It wasn't. 2 days later, Claire called me in tears. Mom forwarded the photo you sent to half the family with a message that said you're using the child for attention and money. Aunt Carol called me. Cousin Brian texted. They're all asking what's going on. I sat on the edge of Lily's hospital bed while she slept and felt something cold settle in my stomach. Diane wasn't just refusing to care. She was actively rewriting the story so that Lily's survival looked like a burden I was forcing on everyone else. Marcus and I made a decision that afternoon. We would not engage. We would protect Lily. We would finish the recovery and go home and build our life without Diane in it. We almost succeeded. Lily came home on a Tuesday in late March. The house smelled like the lemon cleaner Marcus had used to scrub every surface. We set up a hospital bed in the living room for the first week because the stairs to her bedroom felt too far. Neighbors brought casseroles. Marcus's sister drove up from Eugene with a bag of new pajamas and a stack of chapter books. Claire came for a long weekend and sat on the floor with Lily doing puzzles while I finally slept more than 2 hours at a stretch. For 3 weeks, the only drama was the slow climb of Lily's energy. She went from needing help to sit up to walking to the bathroom by herself. The scar across her chest was pink and raised and already becoming something she was proud of. She told the delivery guy who brought the Amazon packages that she had a heart zipper. He high-fived her. Then the certified letter arrived. It was from a lawyer in Lake Oswego. Diane and Greg had filed a petition in probate court claiming that my late father's life insurance policy, the one that had paid out when he died of a sudden heart attack when I was 22, had been mismanaged. They alleged that the remaining funds, which had been placed in a trust for me, were being improperly diverted to non-essential medical care for a minor child with a pre-existing condition. They wanted the court to appoint a guardian of the trust and restrict any further withdrawals. I read the letter twice. Then I sat on the kitchen floor with my back against the dishwasher and laughed until I cried. My father had left that policy specifically so I would never be trapped the way he felt trapped in his own marriage to Diane. The trust was small, about $80,000 remaining after the first 2 surgeries and the years of lost income. It was our safety net. Diane knew the exact balance because she had been the original trustee until I turned 25 and took control. Marcus found me on the floor. He read the letter. Then he called our own lawyer, a quiet woman named Priya who had helped us with Lily's medical power of attorney years earlier. Priya's voice was calm when she called back. This is spite, not law. The trust language is clear. You're the beneficiary. Medical care for your dependent child is an allowed expense. They're trying to use the court to punish you. We'll answer the petition. It will be dismissed. But it's going to cost you time and money they know you don't have. I understood then. Diane didn't just want us to stop making Lily their problem. She wanted to make sure we couldn't afford to keep solving it. The next month was a blur of legal filings and recovery milestones. Lily's cardiologist cleared her for school in the fall if her numbers stayed strong. Marcus picked up extra shifts at the shop. I started tutoring online in the evenings after Lily went to bed. We sold the second car. We stopped eating out completely. Every dollar that left the trust was documented and sent to Priya so she could attach it to the response. Diane's lawyer kept pushing for a hearing. Greg sent a long email to Claire and me listing every medical bill he claimed we had chosen to incur instead of accepting natural outcomes. The phrase, natural outcomes, sat in my chest like a stone. He meant letting Lily die. Claire called me one night while I was folding laundry. I confronted Mom, she said. Her voice was shaking. I told her she was being cruel. She said, Claire, you have healthy children. You don't understand the reality of a defective child. Elena is dragging the whole family down with her. Then she hung up. I thanked Claire for trying. I told her she didn't have to keep fighting this battle. She cried and said she couldn't stop. In May, the court scheduled a preliminary hearing. Priya prepared a binder thick with medical records, trust statements, and a letter from Lily's surgeon stating that the Fontan procedure had been medically necessary and successful. Marcus and I dressed in the only nice clothes we still owned and drove to the courthouse in downtown Portland. Lily stayed with Marcus's sister for the day. Diane and Greg sat on the other side of the room in matching navy. Diane's hair was perfect. She never looked at me. The judge was a woman in her 50s with reading glasses on a chain. She listened to both sides for 40 minutes. Then she looked at Diane's lawyer and said, Counsel, your clients appear to be asking this court to second-guess a parent's medical decisions for a child with a documented life-threatening condition. Is that accurate? The lawyer cleared his throat. Your Honor, we are concerned about the depletion of trust assets. Answer the question. In part, yes. The judge closed the folder. Petition denied. The trust remains under the control of the beneficiary. Counselors, I strongly suggest your clients reconsider any further filings of this nature. Court is adjourned. We walked out into the spring sunlight. Marcus put his arm around me. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe all the way to the bottom of my lungs. That should have been the end. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at our house with no return address. Inside was a stack of printed screenshots from a private Facebook group called Parents of Special Needs Children, Pacific Northwest. Diane had joined under a fake name. She had posted the photo of Lily after surgery along with a long caption. My daughter insists on keeping this child alive through endless surgeries. The medical system enables it. The rest of the family is expected to pretend this is normal. I'm exhausted from being treated like an ATM for a lost cause. Any other grandparents dealing with this? The comments underneath were a mix of sympathy and horror. Some people told her she was right to set boundaries. Others told her she should be ashamed. One commenter, a woman whose avatar showed her with a child in a wheelchair, wrote, "That little girl is not a lost cause. You are." Diane had replied to that comment. Easy to say when it's not your retirement on the line. I sat at the kitchen table with the printouts spread in front of me. Marcus came home from work, saw my face, and read them in silence. Then he said, "We need to end this. Completely." I called Claire. She already knew. One of the group members had recognized Diane's writing style and messaged Claire privately. Claire had screenshots of her own. She offered to help however she could. That night after Lily was asleep, I wrote a single email. I addressed it to Diane, Greg, Claire, Aunt Carol, Cousin Brian, and every relative who had received Diane's earlier forwarded messages. I attached the original surgery photo, the cardiologist's summary, the court order dismissing the petition, and the Facebook screenshots. Then I wrote, "This is the last time I will explain. Lily is not a problem. She is a child who needed open-heart surgery to live. She is recovering. She laughs. She asks for pancakes. She is not draining anyone's retirement because no one was asked to pay. Diane and Greg attempted to use the court to take control of money my father left me so they could stop us from using it for her care. They failed. They then posted private medical information about a minor child in a public forum under a false name. That is both cruel and illegal. I am done. Do not contact us. Do not contact Lily. Do not speak about her. If any of you choose to continue spreading Diane's version of events, I will involve an attorney for defamation and violation of medical privacy. This is not a negotiation. This is the boundary. Elena. I hit send. Then I blocked Diane and Greg on every platform and every phone number. The silence that followed was almost worse than the noise. For 3 days nothing happened. On the 4th day, Claire called. Mom is furious. She's telling everyone you threatened her. Greg is talking about suing for emotional distress. Aunt Carol says she's staying out of it. Brian texted me that he thinks Mom went too far. I told Claire thank you and hung up. Summer arrived. Lily's scar faded from angry pink to a softer silver line. She started swimming lessons at the community pool with a medical clearance letter taped inside her bag. Marcus and I took her to the coast for 3 days and let her dig in the sand until her hands were wrinkled. We didn't talk about Diane. We talked about whether the hermit crabs preferred the blue bucket or the red one. In July, a different letter came. This one was from Greg's accounting firm letterhead, but the signature was Diane's. She had written it by hand. Elena, I have had time to reflect. The court hearing was humiliating. The Facebook situation was a mistake. I was angry and I spoke poorly. Greg and I are prepared to offer a one-time gift of $10,000 toward Lily's ongoing care if you agree to certain terms. No further public discussion of family matters, no legal action regarding the Facebook posts, and a written acknowledgement that we have always had the family's best interests at heart. We are still your parents. Family is family. Diane. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and put it in the drawer with the old medical bills. I never answered. August brought the start of school. Lily walked into 2nd grade with a new backpack and a heart that was finally strong enough for recess without oxygen checks every 20 minutes. Her teacher sent home a note the first week. Lily is a joy. She told the class about her zipper, and they all wanted to see it. She is very proud. I taped that note to the fridge. In September, Claire drove down for Lily's birthday. We had cupcakes and a piñata and too many balloons. After the kids were in bed, Claire and I sat on the porch with glasses of cheap wine. She told me Diane had started attending a new church and was telling people there that her daughter had cut her off for no reason. Claire had finally blocked her too. I keep waiting for the part where I feel guilty, Claire said. It hasn't come. I understood exactly what she meant. Fall turned toward winter. Lily's 6-month cardiology check showed perfect numbers. The surgeon smiled and said, "She's doing everything we hoped." Marcus and I stood in the exam room and cried the good kind of tears for the first time in years. Then, 2 days before Thanksgiving, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. When I did, a woman's voice said, "Is this Elena? My name is Rebecca. I think I used to know your mother." Rebecca had been Diane's closest friend 20 years earlier. They had fallen out after Diane made a series of comments about Rebecca's son, who had been diagnosed with autism. Rebecca had found my name through an old Christmas card list and the recent court records that were public. She wanted me to know something. "Your mother has always rewritten the story when she doesn't like her part in it," Rebecca said. "When your father was dying, she told the hospital staff he had brought the heart problems on himself with stress. She told me once that she regretted having children because they complicated the narrative of her life. I'm sorry. I should have said something years ago." I thanked her. I didn't know what else to say. That night I sat with Marcus after Lily was asleep and told him everything. He listened the way he always does, quiet, steady, present. When I finished, he said, "She doesn't get to be in the story anymore. That's the only ending that makes sense." We spent Thanksgiving at Marcus's sister's house. Lily wore a paper crown from the kids' table and declared the mashed potatoes the best in the universe. I watched her laugh with her cousins and felt the last of the old weight slide off my shoulders. December came with rain and early dark. One evening, while Lily was coloring at the kitchen table, I received a text from an unknown number. "This is Greg. Diane is in the hospital. Possible stroke. She is asking for you." I stared at the message. Marcus read it over my shoulder. We looked at each other for a long time. I typed back, "I'm sorry she's unwell. We will not be coming." Greg replied, "She's your mother." I answered, "She made her choice years ago." So did I. I put the phone face down on the counter and helped Lily finish the sky on her drawing. She had colored the entire page bright blue except for a small silver line across the middle of a stick figure girl. "That's my zipper," she said. "So everyone knows I'm strong." I kissed the top of her head. "Everyone who matters already knows. We never went to the hospital." Claire told me later that Diane recovered enough to go home with mild weakness on one side. She never reached out again. Neither did Greg. In January, the final piece of the trust paperwork arrived. Priya had filed a quiet motion to close the court file completely and confirm my sole authority. The judge signed it without comment. I opened a new savings account in Lily's name and moved what remained of the trust into it with clear instructions that it could only be used for her education or medical needs. Marcus and I started a small emergency fund of our own from his overtime. Spring returned the way it always does in Portland, slow, green, and damp. Lily's scar was almost white now. She had grown 2 inches. She asked if she could try soccer. The cardiologist said yes with a smile. On the anniversary of the surgery, I took the original photo, the one that had started everything, and printed a new copy. I framed it and hung it in the hallway next to Lily's school pictures. Underneath I wrote in small letters on the mat, "She is not a problem. She is the reason." Some nights when the house is quiet I still think about that text. Stop making her our problem. I used to hear it in Diane's voice. Now I hear it as the moment the door finally closed. The anger has burned down into something quieter. Not forgiveness, just distance. The kind of distance that lets a person breathe. Lily is 8 now. She still tells new friends about her zipper if they ask about the scar. Most of them think it's cool. A few look worried until she grins and says, "My heart works better than some people's." Then they laugh and the moment passes. Marcus and I still live in the same blue house. The porch still sags a little. The backyard still floods in the spring. We fixed the roof last summer with money we saved ourselves. No one else's name is on the paperwork. Claire visits when she can. Marcus's family fills the holidays. We have built a circle that does not require explanation or defense. When people ask about my mother, I say, simply, "We're not in contact." Most of them nod and change the subject. The ones who push get the short version, and then the boundary again. I used to think the worst thing that could happen was losing Lily. I was wrong. The worst thing was discovering that the people who were supposed to love her unconditionally saw her life as an inconvenience to be managed or erased. The best thing was learning that we could survive that discovery and still build something warm on the other side. Last week Lily came home from school with a drawing of our family. There were 4 stick figures, me, Marcus, Lily, and Mr. Ears the elephant. No empty spaces, no missing people. She had drawn a bright red heart on each chest. On hers the heart had a small silver zipper. She taped it to the fridge, next to the old teacher note. I stood in the kitchen looking at it while the afternoon light came through the window, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, complete. Not perfect, not finished, just complete. The text that once knocked the air out of my lungs is now just a line in a story that ended the only way it could. Lily is here. She is strong. She is ours. And no one gets to call her a problem ever again. That is the whole truth. Every part of it. From the fluorescent hallway, where my hands shook, to the quiet kitchen, where a little girl with a zipper on her heart draws the people who stayed. I wouldn't change a single page.